All right, we made it to Friday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. President Trump is on his way back to the U.S. after a successful China trip. Trump touting his relationship with Xi Jinping, announcing that farmers will be happy with China's agreement to buy American soybeans once again.
The farmers are going to be very happy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of soybeans.
Also, Minnesota Democrats threw a little hissy fit last night after they were blocked by Republicans to bring anti-gun legislation to the state house floor. One raging leftist, Aisha Gomez, caught on camera screaming at Republican Elliot Engren, telling the Republican to, quote, kill himself. Stay classy, San Diego. And the owner of a healthcare software company, Brett Blackman, has been convicted for running a $1 billion Medicare fraud conspiracy, stealing money from hundreds of thousands of Medicare beneficiaries. I mean, what a piece of trash. But first, data centers bulldozing hundreds of miles of rural communities to power data for cities that need them. The real cost of the digital progress. Let's do this. All right. AI, quantum computers, cyber, this and that, all sounds good to have all this like computing power at your fingertips. But the cost of making memes and research and now songs from scratch in 12 seconds has to be powered by something somewhere. These are data centers. Huge rows of computers to compute all the things you type into your iPhone every 5 seconds. Rows of computers for miles, consuming billions of gallons of water for cooling. They use more energy than some entire cities. And they're eminent domaining people's farms and properties that they've been on for their whole lives so they can build these cooling towers that can be heard from over a mile away. Hey, look, you know how I feel about eminent domain, folks. Like, legit would defend my property with guns if they tried that on me. But these things are popping up everywhere, and people are saying, don't data my countryside. Here's the dilemma. 71% of the country opposes data centers. And you see this at all these town hall meetings where people are screaming against it with almost no one speaking in favor of them.
My ranch is not empty land. It's not for industry. It's our livelihood.
We're telling you we don't want it, but you do not hear what we're saying.
We're being asked to sacrifice the lifeblood of our city so a $1 trillion company can save a fraction of a cent on its margins. We're being asked to drain our reservoirs so a chatbot can write a poem or so our sheriff can generate a picture of himself standing next to Bigfoot.
Look, you might think that's a joke, but to make that meme of Bigfoot, it takes the same computing power and energy it does to run your refrigerator for an hour to make a meme. And they're building these centers near people's homes for sometimes homes that have been there for generations, and they're getting destroyed. Yet they're suspiciously getting approved, by the way, with tax credits all over the place, anywhere they want them. Like places like Maine, both state legislatures, the state Senate and the state House, straight up just banned them from being built. And then the trans-loving governor, Janet Mills, vetoed the bill and allowed one to proceed with construction anyway. This is the crazy part. The people who want these things built are mostly in cities who already have all this kinds of noise and electronics and infrastructure all around them anyway. And the people who are getting them built in their backyards are the rural folks that don't want them. People living in the country, so they don't have to have these things. So they don't have to have exhaust fans and electric humming and light pollution that can be seen from 3 miles away. You imagine, just imagine for a second, moving to your perfect paradise. Great view, peace and quiet, private road. And a few years later, Meta and a half dozen other big tech companies, they move in. They run high-tension power lines just like that, right over your family farm. You can hear them buzzing because they have so much power for the AI so someone can make memes on their iPhone. This is happening. Here's a story from one person in Georgia.
The water won't come through the water lines to fill the toilet tank, so I have to fill it with a bucket of water. It was the perfect spot. We moved in 2016. Little did we know at the time that in 2018 we realized that this massive development was happening across the road from us.
And now she has no water in her house. It was fine before they built the data center, but now they have literally sucked the ground dry to cool their computers. She can't even flush her toilet. Dude, this is like civil uprising stuff. They are going to pick the wrong town one day, and people are going to get violent. I can't tell you how I probably could tell you how I'd react if they ran a power line right through the middle of my property. Wouldn't be happy. But the other issue is that these data centers are becoming the priority over people. Meta and all these other billion-dollar companies, they can pay whatever they want for anything, but most of us can't. Entire cities are seeing their electricity costs doubled in some cases. One town around Lake Tahoe, folks, Lake Tahoe, 49,000 permanent residents. Just out of luck, they're going to have to find a new power source next year because in less than a year, their current power plant is going to reroute all of their energy to a new data center because it pays more. Lake Tahoe's not like some remote area with nobodies in it. It's a very high-end area with a ton of people. If they can do it there, they can do this anywhere. And it might be your neighborhood next. In fact, I take that back. They are doing it in your neighborhood. Construction is either in final planning or even in progress in a ton of not so remote areas. Forget the ones that are already built already. There's thousands of them all over the country. But you have Phoenix, Arizona, Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, that's becoming like one of the biggest major hubs with dozens more planned. Columbus, Ohio, Reno, Nevada, Quincy, Washington, El Paso, Texas, Santa Teresa, New Mexico, Imperial County, California, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, Kansas City, Missouri, and one of the biggest ones, Salt Lake City. They want to build one there that is twice the size of Manhattan. Now, despite residents vehemently opposing this, like they went to the town hall meeting and they were like, no. Everybody was like, no. Somehow, it was unanimously approved by the Box Elder County Commission. It's 40,000 acres. It's 62 square miles of computers. It's going to be built in phases, but when it's complete, it will consume 9 gigawatts of power. What the hell is a gigawatt? Guess what? The entire state of Utah consumes about 4 gigawatts. It's more than double the state of Utah. It's going to use almost 17 billion with a B gallons of water a year, which is 25,000 Olympic swimming pools to cool those things, in a state that every year is forced already to ration water because of droughts. The area currently has a hotline for you to report people that are watering their lawns. And they want to add a facility that's going to consume 17 billion more gallons of water. Where are they going to get it from? Nobody thinks about this stuff in these things. They're like, oh, sorry, residents. Also, there's concerns. It's so big, it's like the Death Star, that its proximity. They're concerned that its proximity to the Great Salt Lake and Salt Lake City could actually generate so much heat that the ground and air temperature could affect the evaporation rate of the entire lake. I mean, this is so crazy that there aren't any environmental groups protesting this either, or at least not en masse. I mean, remember, they wanted to run a pipeline, like a little pipeline from Canada to America, the Keystone Pipeline, for fuel. They could cut like a 100-foot wide notch in the forest with basically no other impact. And the hippies lost their mind. They're out there. They had to be removed by law enforcement, like handcuffing themselves to trees and gluing their hands to the road. But when it comes to bulldozing mountains for solar farms that Obama wanted, that's fine. Or data centers that big liberal donors, by the way, Google and Meta, like 90% of their people donate to libs. Then when they do that, when they bulldoze entire communities, the hippies are totally silent, or they go on flotillas to Gaza or something. Then the city councils that go against their people who don't even show up to these meetings because of the outrage. Some of these city council meetings right now, they're being moved to Zoom because people are so pissed off. They say, oh, this will be great for jobs. Really? The one in Salt Lake City is estimated to create 10,000 construction jobs, briefly, but only 2,000 permanent jobs. And that's so they say. Because if I used history to judge anything, they've actually done this before, folks, so they have a track record. J.P. Morgan invested over $1 billion into one of these. It's a little bit smaller in scale, but one of these, they got a $77 million tax credit. Oh, it's going to be great for the economy and jobs. It created one job. The robots monitor the whole thing. It's got one guy is just sitting in there, just in case something goes wrong, playing on his iPhone, sucking up AI data, making memes. Look, I'm not anti-technology, but I'm anti-this. This is not progress. Stop ruining people's lives who moved out of these cities, by the way, for these data centers. Put them in the city where people who A, want them, and B, will be the ones using all the data. Executive Director of Grow Flow, a nonprofit working on water policy and security in Utah for that giant data center and sounding the alarm about this. Ben Abbott and attorneys that's fighting for residents in Northeast Pennsylvania against data centers, Justin Richards. Ben, what do you make of this whole thing?
This is potentially the biggest data center in the world. As you said, it's going to consume twice the electricity of an entire state, and it's been improved in just a matter of days. Right, almost no chance for the public to get involved. And we've just been told, trust us, it's going to be good for you. Well, as the data has slowly seeped out of this, we see that there's over a 90% tax cut on the energy production part of this project. You know, we've got citizens from Box Elder County, very rural, ranchers, farmers struggling to make ends meet. They just got a $500 tax increase, while this company is getting the equivalent of billions of dollars of tax cuts. So it's an example of how we've got to do things differently, right? There's been an argument that it's been too hard to build things. In America, we need environmental reform. Well, these are the kinds of projects that we actually need protection for. There needs to be a process. And I have been really encouraged to see people from the right, left, and center coming together, right? There was a rally yesterday where farmers and environmentalists joined arms and said, not in our backyard.
Yeah,
right?
dude,
I'm
a big hunter. Like, I'm an outdoorsman. This is an atrocious use of our land. But Justin, you're representing some residents that are opposing one of these in Archbald, Pennsylvania, which has a population of 7,000 people. Okay, so your law firm is representing these people. Developers are planning 6 data centers there that is going to cover 14% of the geographical town's land and would add 51 data warehouses that are each bigger than a super Walmart, which is like acres.
That's correct. It is really astonishing and shocking to the people of this small town. And a lot of what you highlighted earlier is exactly what these people are concerned about. You know, it would absolutely change their way of life in this small town, the American way of life. And they're fighting back. Luckily, unlike what's going on there in Utah, we are in the zoning permit application stage for a lot of these applications for these developments. And the people are fighting and their voices are being heard, and we hope to continue the fight. Yeah.
Ben, the other thing is 71% of Americans oppose the construction of these data centers in their local area. But what's shocking to me is that only 53% of Americans oppose a nuclear power plant in their backyard. So the data that says we don't want these, 20 points higher for a data center.
You know, the thing is, look, AI is threatening jobs. It's changing the whole environment for everyday people. And then you're saying you're going to give up whole portions of the wilderness of your state. Right. 40,000 acres. You don't have a say, shut up and sit down. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Right. If this is crucial to national security, if we need it to beat China in the AI race, we need to know why. Right. Yeah. How can you have a data center without any data?
But what,
right? There really has been outrage. I put the numbers much higher than 70% here. I haven't met a single person who is supporting this project. And that's why Grow the Flow and other groups are getting organized. And I didn't think anything could unify our country in 2026, but this has.
But Justin,
we've got to face this issue. We need a better process than what they're doing in China.
100%. But Justin, I'm a solutions guy. So why don't we bulldoze the UN building that nobody wants here in Manhattan anyway? And you can put those things 47 stories high for all I care. They got all the noise here already.
Yeah, I think that's just it. You know, it's a matter of responsible development and finding the right place for this sort of thing, because, like it or not, this computing power and the development that it is required to support it is the way that our society and culture is going. So it's a matter of responsible development and to stop attacking small communities and the rural way of life.
Right. Yeah. Look, I've been to Area 51. You can fly for like hours in a helicopter. There's nothing there. Put them all there. I don't care. Ben, Justin, keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, just in time for summer, another Democrat power grab, literally. One California politician rolling out a new proposal that has critics wondering if anything's off limits anymore. Wait until you hear this one. But speaking of power grabs, parents already fighting schools in the classroom. Now, one blue state wants to say what happens at the kitchen table in homeschooling, too. A new bill critics say could really affect homeschool families and put them under the government's microscope. Next.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Nothing says freedom like asking the state for permission to teach your own children. A new bill out of my home communist republic of Connecticut would force homeschool families to file annual notices with the state just to keep homeschooling. And families pulling children out of public school could actually face background checks through the Department of Child and Families, or DCF they call it. But it doesn't stop there. If a parent or another adult, even part-time living in the home, is at any point tied to a DCF investigation, even for something like going through a divorce, or appears on the state's abuse or anything, any neglect registry ever, the family could be banned from homeschooling altogether indefinitely. But homeschooling also ties those licenses to potential requirements for vaccination records to be approved to get the permit to homeschool your own damn kids. So let me get this straight. My kids, my home, government's rules? I don't think so. Get bent. Host of Ike Wingate America, Ike Wingate, and host of Grace Curley Show, Grace Curley. All right, Ike, you got kids. I would be like, no.
Yeah, there is no way. Keep your damn hands off my kids. Right. Why does the left want to own our children so badly? And homeschool families are some of the best families you can come in contact with. If you're trying to address truancy, that's one thing. Don't take a cannon to that problem when you could be done with a rifle. And by the way, speaking of rifles, homeschool families, good luck enforcing this. They love the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I mean, Grace, this is going to be a big deal for a lot of people because you've got kids that also work, support family farms and things like that. They're like, we don't have a school in 100 miles.
Yeah, it's the enforcement part of it that really stuck out to me, Ike, because there is no enforcement measure with this plan. And so that is, to me, typical of the left. It's let's add more laws, let's create more legislation, but it's useless legislation. It doesn't actually address the problem, which they claim they're trying to stop children who are in abusive situations. We all want to stop that, but adding more laws to the books in an ineffective way isn't going to do that. Side note, I didn't know you were from Connecticut. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're surviving. We're the least bad of the tri-state area. All right, so a Massachusetts school has issued race-based payouts to their staff. Check this out. At least 4 different schools, and 4 different school officials at Framingham Public Schools are receiving a $1,500 bonus for identifying as BIPOC, which I had to look up because I didn't even know what that is. It's Black, Indigenous, or people of color. The Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Ike, is looking into this, thankfully.
The guy on the top left, I think he's pushing it a little bit. I don't know that he quite qualifies.
He
for
identifies
BIPOC.
as it.
Yeah,
it's okay to.
Yeah, as long as you identify. Here's the interesting thing: is if you're white, you get less at these schools, so that's discrimination. But the graduation rate at this school is 74%. 1 in 4 kids doesn't even graduate. The priorities are clearly not in the right place.
Yeah, maybe spend the money on textbooks. I don't know.
See, this is my state now. This is Massachusetts.
Oh,
so there you go. I'm not coming from a great place either.
You have worse gun laws than I do.
And the mayor in Boston actually had a party where it was no whites allowed. This was a Christmas party a few years ago. So this is very on brand with what's going on in the Commonwealth. And it's disgusting, as you said. You look at all of these report cards that we're getting from across the country, especially in blue cities. And there's a lot lacking there that they should be focused on and not rewarding teachers for things that really are not in their control, which is the color of your skin.
Yeah, I think Massachusetts actually has the worst job record, companies leaving, of any state in the... Okay, maybe focus on that. Yeah. All right, Democrats really have a hard time remembering things, though, Ike. 2020, when Trump lowered the price of insulin, we all remember this, it went berserk. Biden then rescinded that in 2021, and then over outrage, he reinstated it, but then he took credit as it was like his idea from the beginning. And then Trump kept it going and launched Trump RX. And this is all on a national level, so it doesn't matter what the states do on this. But yesterday, the radical nut job Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, who, by the way, just signed a nasty gun bill, signed another bill capping insulin at the same price, $35. Wow. I mean, she's taking credit for Trump's work.
Yeah, imagine that. She is like the Milli Vanilli of politics. She's lip syncing. Girl, you know it's true. I think for her next trick, she is going to say that she has eliminated taxes on tips and overtime because she just takes credit for ideas that are not hers. You can't believe anything she says. She's one of the worst.
Yeah, but Grace, she's also sort of conceded only after she got smacked down by the Supreme Court of her state that, like, you can't break the state constitution. So she's conceding this, and she's saying, fine, I guess we'll proceed with the election maps in 2026 as they're... Of course you will.
Yeah, this was a terrible idea from the beginning, and they didn't have the advantage as far as these numbers when it comes to redistricting, and they were all on board with it. They spent a lot of money on this. Just
it was like $100 million.
To have it be a major loss. And this is what Hakeem Jeffries told us was bleep around and find out. Yeah. And I just want to say, if this is what bleeping around gets you, I like what we're finding out. This is 2 thumbs up in my book.
Well, by the way, every Republican now has, like, found a pair and, like, yeah, let's redistrict our state, too.
Yeah, they finally woke up. Meanwhile, in Virginia, the AG doesn't know how to use spell check, and so that's where we are today.
Well, yeah, he also threatened to kill his opponent's kids.
Oh, that, well,
that was
that minor thing.
Anyway, Ike, Grace, we appreciate you popping in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed under fire for potentially lying about his history about being a doctor. A Democrat lying about credentials. Who could have possibly caught that? Got that next.
The biggest selection of plants and trees, perfect for your yard. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. From privacy and fruit trees to shrubs, flowering trees, houseplants, and more. Straight to your door. Fast Growing Trees has more plants than you'll find at a garden center. And every tree comes with our Alive and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love at FastGrowingTrees.com. Save now on your best yard.
This Memorial Day, we honor the brave who stood watch over our nation's security. At PCmatic, we're proud to continue that legacy by protecting your digital world. From American homes and local businesses to our nation's government agencies, we provide the only cybersecurity that's 100% researched, developed, and supported right here in the USA. PCmatic, American made, American strong. Visit PCmatic.com today.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's All-American customer service team is standing by.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. This frame is an 8-base wrap, so it's going to sit close to your face, give you wide peripheral vision, stay on tight, but it also has a squared off lens for a versatile everyday look. And then you have comfort fit adjustable rubber nose pads for secure fit as well. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Since 1990, the lightweight Craig Cat has meant quality, affordable boating. Florida Sports Magazine called the Craig Cat an absolutely brilliant breakthrough in watercraft design. With the stability and comfort of a large boat, but the fuel efficiency and portability of a small boat, Craig Cat has put the fun back in boating. Craig Cats are also available in both electric and hybrid models. Call Craig Cat now, toll free at 877-999-4CAT and step into a Craig Cat.
Well, 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 if it isn't another Democrat lying about their credentials. This time, Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed claiming he's a physician.
Dr. Bill, you're uniquely situated in that you are a physician.
The only reason I'm doing it is because it seems to me the logical extension of what the oath I took when I became a physician.
Listen, I'm a doctor, but I know.
Abdul Sayed is an American physician, a former public health professor, government official.
My name is Abdul Sayed. I am a physician in epidemiology.
So it turns out this dude is none of the above. So you have to have earned an MD but also be licensed to practice, and he is not. He has a PhD in public health. It's like Jill Biden, basically. His only experience treating patients comes from a small clinical internship at a Manhattan hospital where he had treated patients for 4 weeks as part of his educational pipeline where he was supervised. The state of Michigan prohibits anyone by law who isn't licensed to, quote, or is licensed to induce the belief that they have a license or are registered to practice medicine. So what is this guy getting charged? Joe Pags, host of the Joe Pags Show. Sir, I say take him away.
Carl, I'm a little disappointed. I texted you this earlier. Please call me Dr. Pags for this segment, if you
mistake.
If you don't mind. I mean,
yes.
I'm not a physician either, but why the hell not say that we are? Listen, this guy's going to lie about who he is. This guy's going to lie about his simple background. Why can he ever serve anybody in any capacity? And again, being some doctorate or a PhD in public health doesn't make you any more than the Ed.D. that Jill Biden has. But of course, Whoopi Goldberg said she'd be a great Surgeon General. So at the end of the day, if you say it, and if you say it enough, and if enough people believe it, you might get elected. Michigan, do better. Carl, you know that I've got a long history in Michigan. I was a TV news anchor there for a long time. I've got a house in Michigan. My daughter lives in Michigan. Michigan, I urge you, please do better than anybody who would lie to your face like this so brazenly.
Yeah, exactly, because he's not going to remove your appendix if you need it. All right, this is an insane story from across the pond, Joe. British student Henry Nowak was randomly just stabbed. Okay, he was stabbed by a Sikh guy wearing what they're calling a legally permitted ceremonial knife. So when the cops arrived, the attacker, the Sikh man, claimed racial abuse because Sikhism obliges male followers of the faith to carry and wear certain items. He's included a wooden comb and a metal ceremonial knife. Now, that small, what they call a kirpan, satisfies any religious obligation to a Sikh and may carry a blade. And Mr. Vikram Digwa was his name. He was carrying that under his clothing and around his neck. So the cops turn around and arrest the bleeding victim, Henry Nowak, because they accused him of racial abuse. And then he died in custody.
They handcuffed the guy. They put him under detainment at least. He dies while in custody because he said words. He said allegedly said words. Carl, we don't know if he actually said anything racial at all. What we know about the case is the bad guy gets to carry a weapon with him in a place where you're not allowed to have a weapon in the UK. The UK is so scared of allowing people to say things freely like we don't want immigrants here or the influx of immigrants has taken away our culture. And the guy dies in custody. Instead of showing up and offering first aid and maybe saving his life and then arresting the bad guy, they are the word police now. And Carl, wait, here's my fear. We're going to end up being that here if we're not very, very careful about this.
Correct.
You can't be in the UK and say something on Facebook about you don't want more immigration from Northern Africa because you think there's too much already. You can be locked up and like they throw away the key.
Yeah.
So now you're arresting people, letting them die in your custody. And the bad guy who did it, they took his word first. He still had the knife, by the way.
Yeah. It's crazy. And nothing for that guy so far. All right, so here's another one. Democrat Jamie Raskin spent over 2 minutes trying to grill some 16-year-old Texas high school student this week during a hearing on political Islam and Sharia law. And I will say this 16-year-old kid brought it. Watch this.
I think it's important to point out, I believe it was 56 of the 57 Declaration of Independence signers were Bible-believing, faith church-attending Christians. I believe it was the first original 13 colonies that required a declaration of faith. So I'm not acknowledging that.
Well, wait a second. Now you're traversing my territory now, Mr. Hunter Lopez. You brought it up. Are you aware that the Constitution of the United States does not establish a religion? It forbids the establishment of religion. Are you aware that it doesn't mention God?
So the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. But what I was going to say...
Is the Declaration of Independence law? Thomas Jefferson described in his famous letter to the Danbury Baptists as a wall of separation.
That was a letter, not a law.
Yes! Good for this kid standing up. That guy is 47 years older than him, and he took Raskin to school. I wish he had said, like, oh, so the Declaration of Independence, I'm not allowed to reference that, but you're allowed to reference Thomas Jefferson's letters to the Danbury Baptist?
Yeah, I watched that in full like you did, and this kid does such an amazing job. The letter, by the way, from Thomas Jefferson, as you know, was saying, we're not going to get in the way of you worshiping as you see fit. That's not our plan here. But this is a Judeo-Christian society. We're based on the Magna Carta that mentions God all the time. It's based on, our laws are based on the 10 Commandments. I wonder who gave us those.
It says it on our dollar bills, Joe. In God we trust.
If you look at the Thanksgiving Day proclamation by George Washington, he thanks the Creator and the Lord and God over and over and over again. And Jamie Raskin thought you're traversing my territory now. Now I understand why Alan Dershowitz says that Jamie Raskin wasn't as good in school as Ted Cruz was. Now I get it, because this kid just dog walked him, as the kids say.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to me. Joe Pags, always a pleasure, my man.
Good weekend, brother. Thank you.
You too. All right, coming up, libs are trying to rewrite history for the sake of DEI casting in Hollywood. When will these people learn? Culture Clash next.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today,
we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
Get $1,000 in free survival gear for a limited time. You heard that right. Right now, when you order the powerful Grid Doctor 3300 solar generator from MyPatriotSupply.com, we'll send you over $1,000 in life-saving preparedness supplies, including a 4-week survival food kit, water filtration system, an off-grid cook stove, and much more, absolutely free. This offer won't last long, so get your generator and free survival gear now at MyPatriotSupply.com. That's MyPatriotSupply.com.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
All right, Donald Trump has landed back in the United States of America after a long trip. He's been talking to press the whole time, so he took no questions outside of there, got right in the car, bounced, because that was just about 2 minutes ago. I don't blame him. The guy worked real hard the last few days. All right, as if the rumors of a 5-foot, 100-pound trans playing the greatest Greek warrior of all time wasn't bad enough in the new movie The Odyssey, the ladies on The View, like Sunny Hostin, are playing teacher while trying to, I guess, rewrite history to argue all the casting choices. Watch this.
In a book called Black Athena, I think people should read it, which argues that classical Greek culture is heavily indebted to Afro-Asiatic and Near Eastern roots. I actually taught Greek mythology to 8th graders. And so I covered this.
Fun fact.
So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman don't know history.
I would check on those 8th graders from her class, because while Greeks were building the Parthenon and marble things everywhere and aqueducts, sub-Saharan Africa was using dry stone and mud to build huts. Different cultures. CEO of Citizens Alliance, Cliff Maloney, and Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield. Cliff, they just can't help themselves. It's like everything's got to be rammed down your throat with diversity. Cliff, we got no audio for you. Ashley, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, look, this woman, Sunny Hostin on The View, wants to, rewrite history, and all the archaeological and genetic evidence suggests that this isn't true. You're looking at, she's saying she taught 8th grade. Well, obviously she's referencing one book that basically says that the Egyptians took over the Greeks. Well, lesson to Sunny Hostin, what happened to Alexander the Great then at that point? He supposedly was the one that conquered, civilizations and, spread, the Greek word. And I think any other Greek I know personally would reject this premise in general.
Exactly. And you can kind of look at basically any historic posting and it will show that we're different, okay? Speaking of all this woke garbage, BLM activists are now calling out Netflix and Kevin Hart for a joke. It was a George Floyd joke. Take a listen to this.
You've done good, though, Kevin. The black community is so proud of you right now. George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard that he can't breathe.
Nobody had a problem in that room with that joke, Cliff.
Look, Kevin Hart laughed at the joke, right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? If Kevin Hart is laughing at the joke, how can you then call it racist? Look, this joke was made a couple of years ago. There was no outrage, but the left needs something to go nuts about, Carl. They pick these random things. They want to drum up the heat and make people feel pressure. We've had enough of it. It's a joke. Laugh.
Right. But Ashley, like, it was totally fine, by the way, to make what they called jokes about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Keep in mind, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose while resisting arrest, okay? But they joked about Charlie Kirk, a father, getting shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the premise of comedy is pointing out kind of the obvious that nobody else wants to say. And, they were the first, I would say, and Democrats especially, to try and silence comedians, especially during the COVID-19 era, if you remember. I mean, they went after podcasters. So, I mean, I think jokes and where we're at with authenticity amongst, where we came from with COVID, Americans want to hear things straight up at this point. They don't care. They don't want to. They don't care about the cancellation. They want to hear what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this Fresno Pride thing going on, Cliff. This is it's great. Another trans queer thing protesting something. Watch this soundbite. It's unbelievable.
I am an activist. I am a substitute teacher. I am part of County District Number 1. And I am here to advocate that libraries are safe spaces. Keep libraries safe. If Fresno City College can fly a pride flag, if Fresno State can fly a pride flag, why can we not at the library?
Because I don't want it there, you freak show.
Carl, the inmates are running the asylum. I mean, what is going to take to get them to realize this is why they lost the election in 2024? Nobody wants all this woke nonsense. If you want to be gay, but stop trying to trans the kids. Stop trying to make everything about how Trump is a fascist and putting all of this Soros money together. It's just sit back, provide real solutions, stop protesting. That's what the American people want.
Ashley, I got less than a minute here on this, but it's I wonder if this person looked in the mirror and was like, yeah, people are going to take me seriously today.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically dressed as a clown, it looks like. That's what every perception any individual would have thought when they saw that person. And I mean, I go as far as to say, okay, if we're going to do this for the trans population, all right, go and do it for white men too at this point. I think that's what you have to open up to if these safe spaces are actually realistic here. So, I mean, this person, woman, whatever it is, they go there to, make a scene, talk about the safe spaces when there's much more important problems. I mean, we are dealing with so much in America currently, and this is what we have to look at. Are you kidding me?
If I got to deal with that, I'm just going to take every kid on a trip and baptize them without the parents' permission and see how they love that one. Cliff, Ashley, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Carl.
Coming up, Vice President J.D. Vance today with a message to law enforcement. We got you back. We wrap up our Police Week coverage next.
It's 2 a.m. Your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-280-3571 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes.
tax relief helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-280-3571. That's 800-280-3571.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
Since 1990, the lightweight Craig Cat has meant quality, affordable boating. Florida Sports Magazine called the Craig Cat an absolutely brilliant breakthrough in watercraft design. With the stability and comfort of a large boat, but the fuel efficiency and portability of a small boat, Craig Cat has put the fun back in boating. Craig Cats are also available in both electric and hybrid models. Call Craig Cat now, toll free at 877-999-4CAT, and step into a Craig Cat.
All right, this week, we've been highlighting the work of America's law enforcement community. Tonight, we are highlighting the work of the law enforcement is doing at the border, specifically in Texas. Newsmax border correspondent Jaeson Jones, he's in the back of a squad car, not because he's being arrested, but he's actually on a stakeout right now with DPS.
Carl, it's good to be with you, buddy. And it's also good to be back on this border with the Texas Department of Public Safety and their units down here trying to hold the line. Now with us, of course, you know this guy, Lieutenant Chris Olivares, who's done an incredible job over the last few years trying to illuminate these border problems. But one thing I can tell you, those big groups we used to see, now since we've been down here, it's ones, it's twos. This group we're working right now, and the reason we're in this patrol car, we got a group of 6. Cartel de Golfo just crossed. They used a drone to do it. Then with that drone covering down, they moved a raft across with these individuals. They're waiting in a water spot about a half a mile from us. The plan here is to get the smuggler, but also to get them at the same time and try to shut them down before they get to the stash house. But they're still using those wristbands, Carl, that you hear me talk about all the time. I had to talk with the lieutenant about it. Take a look. Tell us about these bracelets. I mean, I think this is something that Americans across the country just don't really understand what you're dealing with and what your men and women are dealing with.
You know, we've seen this over the years when we talk about the border crisis and what we were dealing with, especially here in Texas, and how criminal organizations in Mexico use illegal immigrants when they're bringing them across the border by placing these bracelets on them. And what these wristbands indicate, obviously you see there's different colors, different wording. It indicates how much they paid to a particular organization, what area they're allowed to cross. Believe it or not, these cartels, they're very coordinated, very sophisticated in how they smuggle people across the border, and they divide the border into zones. And these colors indicate what zone these people can actually cross or be smuggled across and how much they paid. So this is truly an example of debt bondage. Just really shows how they use people as a commodity.
Of all the things, you know, that you've shown me over the years that you've dealt with, this is what bothers me the most.
Yeah, you know, this is something that, you know, people probably hear about this or talk about this, but when you see a wristband this small, I think it's a testament. It really tells you this actually was on a child.
And the reason that one's not cut like these are is because those children are so small, their little wrists, and it's also why it's taped, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not even designed for a child that small.
They're not designed, obviously, for children, so that's why, obviously, you see here they place some tape on it, but you can see how small it is and really shows that this was placed on a child. And we've seen these on children.
Carl, one last thing I want to say about being down here this week. I tell you all the time that the cartels adjust on a dime. I was talking to some of these agents. They arrested a couple of individuals from Ethiopia. Guess how much they're charging them? Cartel de Golfo just across that river, $75,000. I've been working this border since 1999. I have never heard of that in my career. That's the most I've ever heard. But it's an example of how they don't quit until we go after them. And that's why we're with these men and women. And to all law enforcement out there, as a retired law enforcement officer of 24 years, thank you for your service, guys, and be safe out there.
Well, Trump buttoned up the border, and it's going for a premium now. Jason, stay safe.
We stopped handcuffing the police and started handcuffing more violent criminals. We've restored a culture that supports, not second guesses, our officers when they go out and do their important work. We've ended the shameful practice of micromanagement of state and local police started by the last administration.
Vice President J.D. Vance today in D.C. speaking to the Fraternal Order of Police, highlighting how the Trump administration has shifted back to a culture of actually supporting law enforcement compared to the Biden administration and the BLM movement that basically reflexively opposed anything they did. Betsy Brantner-Smith, the spokesman for the National Police Association, and Joe Imperatrice is founder of Blue Lives Matter New York City. All right, so Betsy, we look at the contrast, and we've been talking about this all week. The contrast between two different administrations, it's remarkable.
Well, it is remarkable. And again, both Joe and I worked under the Obama administration, which was horrific. And when Donald Trump came in the first time, we had a federal government that supported what law enforcement was trying to do. The Biden administration tried to unwind that. And now the Trump administration, once again, especially with an FBI that is supporting state and local law enforcement, is trying to let cops do their job.
Weird.
And you can talk to street cops everywhere, and they'll tell you it feels different.
Yeah, well, it's also good to have, the people up top have your back. But today, Joe, the Justice Department announced a summer surge plan in Washington, D.C. ahead of America 250 celebrations. Now, authorities, on top of what they've already done, they've made D.C. 100 times safer over, but authorities are now requesting an additional 1,500 National Guard troops to the Capitol. That's going to bring the total to 5,000.
Well, listen, the defund the police movement obviously hasn't helped this. If we did not defund the police, we'd have more than enough police officers all over this nation for such a celebration of this magnitude. Thank God for President Trump being able to go out there and start having a game plan, but we have to work more. This just goes to show that we have to make up ground for the faults that many of the Democrats made over the last 10 years. We have to continue to keep America safe, no matter if it's the 250th anniversary or just a regular day in America.
Yeah. Betsy, this morning, obviously, DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen was on the ground with ICE officers in Virginia. They had arrested a criminal illegal who had been removed from the U.S. multiple times, and yet people are still protesting this type of activity.
Carl, it's absolute insanity. I live in Arizona. We see it every day, the anti-ICE nonsense. We're seeing it around the country, including in my native Chicago. And what this anti-ICE, the protests and all that, are bleeding over into an anti-law enforcement stance from the left. But we truly are seeing that most people support ICE activity. Most people support law enforcement, but we've got to be harder on these protesters when they become riotous or when they interfere with lawful law enforcement activities, and that's what happened here.
But, Joe, you mentioned defunding the police. The only thing that got defunded was training and recruiting, and now they're stretched.
Well, you wonder why, and it goes to many other things. We need boots on the ground. We need high visibility. Go back to foot posts. Going out there to see actual police cars being able to drive up and down your neighborhoods. Carl, I don't know about you, but over the last 3 to 5 years, you see much less of that. You see all these cops being flooded into areas where protests are in large cities such as New York City and Los Angeles. We have to have more than enough police officers to be able to respond to the 911 calls for the people that actually needs officers. Yes, we have to go to the protests. Yes, we have to keep everybody safe. But there's people that call 911 that expect somebody to show up and make their day better when they're going through the worst times of their day.
Yeah. Joe, Betsy, we appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, before we go.
Thanks for having me.
Typical Democrats trying to force L.A. to become vegan. Those are pretty much fighting words, according to Spencer Pratt and me, obviously. Next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands. We'll help you put off the high cost of a roof replacement for at least 5 years.
Or 10.
Or sometimes even 15.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it.
We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. But don't wait. If your roof loses too much protective coating, it's too late. Call now or scan the code, and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped some dolphins age healthier than others. It's called C15, and the more they had in their diet, the healthier they aged. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, Fatty 15 is bringing this discovery out of the ocean into everyday life to give your cells the same age-related benefits as all those happy, healthy dolphins. Fatty 15, healthy aging for all.
Go ahead, crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
My name is Deanna Perazzo, and I'm a professional wrestler. I want to use my spotlight to help T2T because my husband was a combat veteran. Helping vets is so important because they're often the most disregarded people in our society. And so to be able to say, like, we see you, we see the sacrifice, we see the struggle you go through to support us in our scariest moments, that deserves to be celebrated, that deserves to be honored. Please help by donating $11 a month at T2T.org. Let us do good.
I wish I wasn't afraid to smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish I knew who to trust.
I'm not looking for another quick fix.
I want a smile I know will last.
Clear Choice smiles are made to stand the test of time. They're built by dental implant experts, backed by 20 years of pioneering research and a lifetime warranty on premium arches. Our smiles are built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
All right, breaking news right now. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected the attempt by Virginia, the last-ditch effort, to restore their gerrymandering screw-up that they did. Well, anyway, what a great way to start the week. Let's go to Donald Trump, who's taking some questions back at the White House. Oh, maybe not. And there he goes. I don't blame the guy. I really don't blame the guy. He just got off a plane for like 29 hours coming back from a foreign land. My man probably wants to get some sleep. But let's go to this radical Democrat L.A. mayoral candidate, Neetha Raman, wants to take away your grill. That's her proposal. She says there's too many wildfires in L.A. and in the area. It's like they're all started by hobos underneath bridges. Okay, they have nothing to do with barbecues. That's what they do. And the last one was started by a deranged leftist and burnt down like half the Southern California. All right, she wants to take that away. And you know what? People are not having it. Bob, I look at this stuff, I'm like, who do you think is going to listen to a barbecue ban?
Sometimes I want to come up with this crafty saying and be like, oh, yeah, dude, they're freaks, man.
I mean,
these people are freaks. And I do love coming on here every night and talking about it, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, no shortage of material, especially out of L.A. with some, what did Pratt call her, a random communist?
Communists,
yeah.
Whatever. They're going to have a Pratt summer, I heard, out there in L.A.
Let's go, baby.
I like that.
All right, Bob.
We'll do it.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.